Okay, sorry. Okay, so topic for today is hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Dengar tak? Okay. Okay. Dengar sekarang. Uh, so these are learning objective for this lecture. So first I will talk about the hypothalamus and then pituitary gland. So hypothalamus. So this topic I think you have covered during the nervous system block. Nervous system block. It used to be given by me in the nervous system block, but this I think this year is given by someone else. So basically, I think you the slide shown here also may similar to the slide I think you learn in the nervous system block. Uh, so hypothalamus, as you know, is a small mass of gray matter contains a number which contain a number of nuclei. Sorry. And it weighs about 4 grams, but it is has major function in homeostasis and survival. So you need hypothalamus to survive, and it forms the floor and lateral wall of the ventricle, and is connected. So it's connected to pituitary gland by pituitary stalk. So this hypothalamus, and the next is pituitary, and it's connected. These two structures are connected by the pituitary stalk, and it serves three important systems. It involved in autonomic nervous system, it's involved in the endocrine system, and it's also involved in the limbic system. So the major, I mean, what concern today for us today is endocrine system. So we focus on the endocrine system. So so I think you know this hypothalamus here, located here, just located under the thalamus. So what the function of hypothalamus? Has many functions. First, the control center for endocrine system is in fact is a master gland. Hypothalamus is a master gland. It's just like the king or the king of the gland or the endocrine system. So it control other glands. But basically, under hypothalamus, we have pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is also a master gland, and under pituitary, it has many other glands. So the king for endocrine system is the hypothalamus, and the prime minister is the pituitary gland. So this hypothalamus, we secrete many hormones. We secrete restriction hormone and inhibition hormone, which mainly acts on the anterior pituitary gland. Secondly, it also involved in the autonomic nervous system. It is a control center for the autonomic nervous system. Also involved in emotion because it's part of limbic system. So hypothalamus is the main output pathway for the limbic system. Also, it regulates body temperature. It regulates food and water intake. It regulates rhythm of the body, such as sleep and waking cycle, corticosteroid cycle, menstrual cycle, and many other cycle, and also involved in sexual arousal and many other functions. So these are the three important functions of the hypothalamus: endocrine function, limbic function, autonomic function. So for the endocrine function, it acts through the pituitary. So the hypothalamus. So under the hypothalamus, you have the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus will control the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland will control other glands. Okay? So this is just like the king. This is the prime minister, and you have many ministers. So we focus today for only on the endocrine system. So I think probably you have learned this also during the nervous system. So hypothalamus you can divide into two zones: medial zone and lateral zone. Okay, medial zone located medially, lateral zone. So the lateral zone contain nuclei, but the nuclei here are more diffuse and poorly organized. You have one or two groups, but mostly they are poor organized. And the medial zone contain more organized nuclei, more well-defined nuclei. And the lateral zone contain longitudinally oriented nerve fibers called the medial forebrain bundle. It contains many fibers basically, and the nucleus here are more diffuse. Whereas the lateral zone is more organized. The medial zone more organized, and this medial zone is divided into 4 regions. First, we have the pre-optic region, supraoptic region next, sometimes also called suprachiasmatic region, and you have the tuberoid region and mammillary region. Okay, same this picture, you have the supraoptic region, pre-optic region first, pre-optic, supraoptic next, tuberoid, and mammillary region. So these are the medial zone. The lateral zone, they are not divided into specific region because the nucleus here are more disorganized, but it contain the forebrain bundle. Forebrain bundle. Okay. It's like also I think you have also learned about this nuclei during the nervous system. So the pre-optic region has 1 nuclei, pre-optic nuclei. Supraoptic region has 4 nuclei. First, you have the supraoptic nuclei, suprachiasmatic, supraoptic, anterior, paraventricular nuclei. So these 4 nuclei located in the supraoptic region. Tuberoid region has 3 nuclei: aqueous nuclei, ventromedial nuclei, dorsomedial nuclei. Okay. Mammillary region contain 2 nuclei: posterior nuclei, mammillary nuclei. Okay. So these are the function of hypothalamic nuclei. So I won't go through one by one. I think you can read on your own. So, but the most important thing for the endocrine is all important, but for this lecture, the important is supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei, because these two you can see is a bit different from other nuclei, supraoptic and paraventricular. These two nuclei release ADH and oxytocin. I think supraoptic release more of ADH. I think paraventricular nuclei release more oxytocin. Okay. But this nuclei has specific function. So, as I mentioned, the hypothalamus is a master gland. It's like the king. So it releases hormone. So later we talk about this hormone, what the hormone released by the hypothalamus. And this hormone released by the hypothalamus will act on the anterior pituitary. So it travel, go down, and act on this cell of the anterior pituitary. And in turn, the pituitary hormone will stimulate the peripheral endocrine gland. So for example, it stimulate the thyroid gland, adrenal gland, testis. So these are the hierarchy or how the endocrine system work. For hypothalamus, the master gland, it then release is control the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland control other glands. And the hypothalamus contain neuron, but unlike any other neuron, it produces hormone. So the hormone of the hypothalamus is not secreted by the glands, but it's secreted by the neuron itself. So if you learn later, the thyroid gland, hormone of thyroid gland is released by the glandular cells, but the hormones of the hypothalamus secreted by the neuron. And there are 2 ways of delivering this hormone to the pituitary gland. Some hormones are released in the median eminence, and then this hormone then enter the blood vessel in the median eminence and transported to the anterior pituitary through the portal system. Some hormone are released directly into the posterior pituitary, and these are the ADH oxytocin. Remember, ADH oxytocin produced by two nuclei, supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. So see, okay. So these are two ways of delivering hormones to the pituitary gland. Okay, some group of neuron, they have axon, these cell bodies. The axon terminate here at the median amnion. Here, and the hormone released by this neuron here will enter the portal vein, blood vessel, portal vein, which then enter the pituitary gland, and this hormone then will act on the cell of the pituitary gland. So this one way of delivering. Another way of delivering hormone is more directly. So these are the neuron. These are the neuron of the paraventricular and supraoptic nuclei. So the axon of the okay. So neuron at the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei, they have long axon. So the axon will go pass through this pituitary stalk, and go directly into the posterior pituitary gland. So this only from these two group of nuclei, the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. So these are two ways of delivering hormone. One, release the hormone at the median amnion, and then the hormone will enter the blood vessel. And secondly, more directly, the neuron has long axon, and this axon will enter directly into the posterior pituitary and release the hormone directly into the posterior pituitary. Okay, so these are the hormone produced by the hypothalamus. So we have the thyrotropin hormone, corticosteroid hormone, thyrotropin hormone, gonadotropin hormone, prolactin hormone, prolactin inhibitor hormone factors, somatostatin, oxytocin, ADH. And the action, I think you can read on your own, because also the action you learn in the physiology. So a bit of clinical correlation. So hypothalamus is a small region of the brain, but it's an important region. And a lesion confined to a small single nucleus is rare, because hypothalamus is small. Even though it's small, it has many nucleus, as I mentioned earlier. And normally, a lesion that involves hypothalamus will be involve many nuclei, basically. So usually, hypothalamic lesion extend into a number of nuclei, resulting in more than one symptom. It's very rare to involve one nuclei, very rare. So normally it involves many nuclei, and each nuclei has specific function. And the lesion to hypothalamus can result from fracture of the skull, or can be due to the stroke, CVA accident, stroke, or can be to the pituitary tumor itself. So any of this or any lesion of this can involve the hypothalamus. And depending on the nuclear damage, symptom result from dysfunction of autonomic nervous system, water intake. So it depends what type of nuclei involved. So the more nuclei involved, there are more symptoms. Okay. So some patient, but normally the region that involve hypothalamus normally have more than one system. It's very rare to involve one nuclei only, isn't it? So it can be, the symptom can be autonomic nervous system dysfunction, water intake problem, or food intake problem, probably for body temperature or sexual behavior. So for example here, this is experiment to specific nuclei, but very rare to involve only one nucleus. So for example, if damage to anterior nucleus, The manifestation, the symptom will be the hyperthermia. So the body will be warm, hot, because the body unable to initiate heat loss mechanism, because the body cannot lose the heat from the body. For post-nucleus is opposite. So opposite, the individual will feel cold because the body unable to conserve heat, because the body cannot conserve heat, cannot preserve the heat to maintain body temperature. Lateral nucleus is involved with eating. So if the damage to this nucleus, the individual will not eat FHA, not eat. So this result in weight loss. Another example, ventromedial nucleus. This will cause overeating. This cause overeating because this ventromedial nucleus normally control the eating, but if it is damaged to the nucleus, the individual will overeat. Okay, but normally this lesion, this will not occur individually lah. Normally combination in real life, but in experiment, in animal experiment, you can target some nucleus. This result in this specific symptom. Okay, so we finish about hypothalamus. Because of this hypothalamus we have covered during the nervous system block, so that's why I don't talk detail about the hypothalamus. Okay, pituitary gland. Okay, this is pituitary gland from rat actually, not human, from rat. So pituitary gland is a oval structure located under the brain. It's connected to the hypothalamus by pituitary stalk. So this is a hypothalamus. This is the pituitary gland. It's connected by the pituitary stalk, and it's small. It is size of a pea and weigh around half a gram. Very small, but very important. And is protected by bone, and this cavity of bone called the sella turcica. Okay, sella turcica is bony cavity within the sphenoid bone, which protect the pituitary gland. And pituitary gland is master gland, master endocrine gland. It produces hormone important for many function, many growth, reproduction, metabolism, but it's under the control of hypothalamus. So relation, a bit of relation. So anteriorly, this is a pituitary gland. So anteriorly you have the sphenosinus. Posteriorly you have the dorsum cellae, is a part of a bone here, dorsum cellae, and behind that you have pons. Superiorly, diaphragmal cellae is covered by the fold of dura, called the diaphragmal cellae. So diaphragmal cellae separate pituitary gland from optic chiasm. So above you have the optic chiasm, this optic chiasm. So the diaphragmal cellae separate pituitary gland from the diaphragmal cellae, and you have the within the diaphragmal cellae you have the a hole, small hole or aperture, which allow the passage for the pituitary stalk. Okay. Inferior relation you have the sphenoid sinus, and laterally you have the cavernous sinus. After you learn that cavernous sinus. So that's a relation. Pituitary gland has two lobes or two components. First, the anterior, or also called adenohypophysis or anterior pituitary, and neurohypophysis or posterior pituitary. And these two develop from different part. So just to show a bit of development. No need to do the detail, but just remember these two lobes develop differently. So adenohypophysis develop from the roof of the mouth. Neurohypophysis develop from the downgrowth of the brain. So these two growth will come together, and eventually they unite to form single gland. So this is a anterior pituitary, this is posterior pituitary. Okay? So when you look under the histology, they look different because they develop differently. They look different. So the anterior pituitary consists of mainly glandular tissue, mainly glands. This has glandular characteristic because it's actually true gland, and this is where it produces hormone, synthesis of hormone. But the posterior pituitary, remember, it downgrows from the brain, so it look like more of the nervous tissues, look like more of the brain rather than glands. So it contains neural tissues, axon and glial cell. So it contains more of the the neural tissues, not the brain. It doesn't produce hormone, but it receives hormone produced by the hypothalamus. The cell itself, unlike the anterior pituitary, the cell here, they can produce their own hormone. But the cell in the posterior pituitary do not produce hormone, but it really receives hormone from the hypothalamus. Remember, the hypothalamus receives send fibers, long axon from the supraoptic and paraventricular ganglia. So these are the hormone received by the posterior pituitary. Okay, first we talk about the anterior pituitary adrenal hypophysis. Adrenal hypophysis you can divide into three parts or three parts. First, the largest part is called the pars distalis. These are the largest part, pars distalis. Pars intermedia is small part only, is very narrow strip of tissues behind the pars distalis and also pars nervosa. This pars nervosa is part of the posterior pituitary. So this part intermedia here is small strip of tissue here. This pars intermedia, this pars distalis, and pars temporalis located above the pars distalis here, next to the infundibulum. This is infundibulum. Okay, neural hypophysis divided into two parts. Infundibulum. Okay, so infundibulum here, which is lie next to the pars temporalis and pars nervosa, and this is a pars intermediate. This is a nice section of the pituitary gland. So if you cut across the pituitary gland, you can see all the three other parts of the glands. First, the pars distalis. This is the pars intermedia, yeah, and next is pars nervosa. You can see they look different. Remember the anterior pituitary, they actually the gland tissue. Posterior pituitary actually nervous tissues. And you have the infundibulum and pars temporalis. So before we go further, you need to know how the pituitary gland get blood. You have two pairs of blood supplying the pituitary gland. And both of them come from the internal carotid artery. First, you have the superior hypophyseal artery, and you have the inferior hypophyseal artery. You have the superior hypophyseal artery, inferior hypophyseal artery. Superior hypophyseal artery supply. Okay. So supply the median and median infundibulum. This area I showed you earlier, and from there, this artery they form capillary plexus, primary capillary plexus, which then form portal vein, hypophyseal portal vein, and this portal vein then form another capillary set of capillary, secondary capillary. I'll show you. So these are the superior artery, and here it form first plexus of capillary, primary capillary plexus, and this plexus will then regroup to form vein, portal vein, and then you have another set of capillary formed within the anterior pituitary, sorry, called this is the secondary capillary set, and you have the portal vein connecting the primary capillary plexus and secondary capillary plexus, the portal vein. The inferior hypophyseal artery supply only the post nervosa, the posterior pituitary. So we have one set of capillary supply the anterior pituitary, one set of blood vessels supply the posterior pituitary. Okay. So inferior hypophyseal supply the pars nervosa. Again, same thing here. So they have the superior hypophyseal artery. First it form the first capillary plexus, and from the plexus form the portal vein. And then from portal vein form another capillary plexus, secondary capillary plexus. But inferior hypophyseal artery supply, you only have one capillary plexus within the pars nervosa. So now we talk about more detail of anterior pituitary. Now more of histology. Pars cystalis. So pars cystalis is the largest part of the anterior pituitary. It forms about 75% of the mass of pituitary, and it contains three important structures. It contains a cord of parenchyma cell or cord of epithelial cell. This is the cell that secrete hormone. Cord of parenchyma cell or epithelial cell, the cell that secrete hormone. And secondly, it has capillaries, and the type of capillaries here are fenestrated capillaries. And third structure, connective tissue stroma. So these are the three important structures contained within the pars cystalis. And the parenchyma cell, it arranged as cord. That's why cord of parenchyma cell, and it surrounds the capillaries. And this parenchyma cell produces hormone, which are stored as granules and released into the secondary plexus. So under the histology, okay. So these are the cord of parenchyma cell. These are the cell that secrete hormone. Hormone. And in between this cord of cell, you have the capillaries. Maybe here it's not obvious. Capillary. I think okay. So here you have cord of parenchyma cell, and between this cord of parenchyma cell are capillaries. Actually, these are the capillary. This is the connective tissue. This one is connective tissue. The pink one here. But the capillary is located between the parenchymal cord of parenchyma cell. So what are the type of cell? Okay. So these are the type of cell present. So these are the cord of parenchyma cell. There are many type of cell present here. Okay. So the type of cell present in the parenchyma cell, cord of parenchyma cell are five type of cell, and each secrete different hormone. First we have the somatotropic cell, which secrete growth hormone. Nomotropic cell, which secrete prolactin. Gonadotropic cell, which secrete FSH and LH. Thanatotropic cell, which secrete TSH, and corticotropic cell, which secrete ACTH. So all these are present, is a component of the cord of parenchyma cell. So these are the different type of hormone produced by anterior pituitary, ACTH, TSH, and these are the organ on which they act. ACTH acts on the endocrine cortex, TSH acts on thyroid gland. I think you learn this in the physiology, so I won't go into detail on this. So now more into histology. Okay. So when you stain the pars cystalis, you can see two type of colors basically. One pale, one have colors. One do not have colors, and the other one have colors. So the one that have colors called chromophil. The color can be bluish, can be pinkish. So this chromophil is like color has a strong affinity for dye. So this one chromophil. Chromophil meaning that they have colors. This one, they have colors. Cover. And the other group of cells, small group of cells, they have called the chromophobe, heat colored, meaning that they have no colors, or the pale, look pale. This one, chromophobe. Look, yeah, whitish pale. This one. So this one, chromophobe. This one, chromophil, have colors. And chromophobe contain less cytoplasm granules. Chromophil more cytoplasm granules. And chromophore can be either stem cell, can be this stem cell, dividing cell, or can be partially degranulated chromophil. Chromophil that has released the granule. Okay, so under here you can see one group of cells they have colors. Colors, all these colors. One group, small group of cells they have doesn't have colors. This one, these are chromophobes. These are chromophobes, they don't have colors. The rest are chromophil, have colors. And chromophil, you can be divided into two types depending on the color. So some group of cells they look orange or red, so they are called acidophil or pinkish. So these are the acidophil, look red or pinkish. These are acidophil cell. So and one group of cells look more darker, more bluish, called basophil. So these are basophil. So acidophil stain red or orange, and basophil stain bluish. So these are basophil, and these are acidophil, pinkish, more pinkish acidophil. So this is how to simplify the type of cell in the past studies. Chromophil have colors, chromophil doesn't have colors. Chromophil you can divide into two, acidophil which stain red or pinkish, basophil which stain bluish. So another here you can see these are stain that stain more red or pinkish. These are acidophil. These are more darker side, more bluish. So there are this basophil. Same thing if you use special stain, azole stain. You can see this acidophil stain orange, acidophil orange. These are the basophil. More these are basophil because it's stain more darker. It's more bluish. Basophil. Okay. So let's finish about the past studies. Now the past intermedia. Pars intermedia is a small region, a small strip of tissues present between pars discalis and pars nervosa, a small area. And what's special about this pars intermedia? Because it contains cysts, colloid containing cysts, because no other region has cysts. And these cysts are remnant of reticular pouch. This is related to development. And it contains mostly basophilic cell, basophilic bluish cell. In fetal life, basophilic cells secrete this proimmunonicotine (POMC), but in adult, the function of basophilic cell is uncertain. Maybe they found the function already, but okay. So here these are past studies located between pars intermedia. Pars intermedia located between pars discalis and pars nervosa. Okay. So what a special feature about pars intermedia is a presence of cysts. So the cysts. And most of the cell in the pars intermedia are bluish. These are basophilic cell, bluish, darker cell, bluish cell. Pars cerebralis is small part next to the infundibulum. So this pars cerebralis, and this infundibulum, this infundibulum, pars discalis, and it has bundle of capillary reflex. Okay. And it contains mostly also the basophilic cell, just like the pars intermedia, mostly basophilic cell, arranged as cord, and this cell secrete FSH and LH. So we don't go into this. Okay. So we finish about the anterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary, as I mentioned earlier, is basically formed by nervous tissues. It formed by nervous tissues because it developed from downgrowth of the brain, and it do not secrete, it do not produce hormone because it doesn't have glandular tissues, and its mentioned is divided into pars nervosa and infundibulum. So what contain inside the neurohypophysis? So this it contain three important structures. First, it contain animated axon from the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. Okay, remember supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus. It has these two nuclei. They have long axon. The axon from this nuclei have long. They are long, and this long axon they pass through directly into the anterior posterior pituitary. So, okay, remember this picture. So the neuron from these two nuclei, supraoptic nuclei, they have long axon. So the axon pass directly into the posterior pituitary, and this supraoptic nuclei and paraventricular nuclei, they produce hormone. Remember the ADH and oxytocin. So this hormone will be carried by the axon and released into the posterior pituitary. And this axon they form a nerve tract called the hypothalamus-hypophyseal tract. So beside the axon, it also contains the supporting cell, pituitary called the pituitary. This is a glial-like cell that support the axon side, and also contain the capillaries, fenestrated capillaries. Okay, so here, okay. So remember, neuron at the paraventricular nuclei, supraventricular nuclei, they have long axon, and the axon goes through the anterior pituitary stalk and which enter the posterior pituitary directly, and the hormone produced by these two nuclei are released into the are stored here at the posterior pituitary, which can be released when needed. So as I mentioned here, there's hypothalamus-hypophyseal tract. Okay, transport oxytocin ADH from secretory neuron of the hypothalamus from the supraoptic and paraventricular to the pars nervosa, and this axon are not ordinary axon. They have dilatation along their length called the Herring bodies. So okay, so here this is normal axon, no dilatation, normal axon. But the axon from the supraoptic and paraventricular they have dilatation called the Herring bodies. Dilatation is I think contain oxytocin and ADH hormone, granule of oxytocin and ADH hormone. It's a way of transporting the hormone basically. So the hormone from the cell body here in the hypothalamus will be carried down in the Herring bodies, just like Herring bodies. So it moves from these bodies to here, and so on until the secretion, ADH and oxytocin are released reach the posterior pituitary. So they are stored temporarily in the posterior pituitary. So in response to nerve stimulation, the content of the glandules are released into capillaries and then distributed to general circulation. So okay. So these are the nuclei. Sorry, the cell bodies of neuron located in the supraoptic and paraventricular, and the axon you can see have dilatation Herring bodies, and that this dilatation actually is a way of transporting the hormone ADH and oxytocin. So this ADH and oxytocin will be carried down through this axon until they reach their destination. Okay, these are just the histology section through the Herring bodies. Yeah, it's very hard to see under the HND, but if you spatial stain, you can see these Herring bodies. So you can see it's in line, it's in straight line, isn't it? Because it's follow the axon. So here as well, hearing bodies. Normally very difficult to see under the the HNE stain, and the rest belong to the supporting side, the pituitary side. So next, how the pituitary gland connected to the hypothalamus. So this is just a summary. So remember, the hypothalamus and pituitary are connected by this axon, long axon, the hypothalamus tract. This axon formed by the cell bodies located in the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. So these two nuclei will have the long axon, and this axon form the tract, and which reach the posterior pituitary. This is how the connection with the hypothalamus and posterior pituitary. Connection with the anterior pituitary is more of the blood vessel, more of the portal system. There's no direct nerve fibers connection with anterior pituitary. Okay? So because the hypothalamus will only stimulate the neuron of the hypothalamus that secrete the hormone to the anterior pituitary will only terminate at the median here, median. From there, the blood, the hormone will enter the portal system. So portal system will carry the hormone down into the anterior pituitary. So the connection is through the portal vein. Okay, a bit of clinical correlation. First, diabetes insipidus is caused by deficiency in ADH, not enough ADH. And the opposite is syndrome of inappropriate secretion of ADH. This is too much ADH. So ADH, okay, this I hope you can try the question. Sometime you can get this question in the exam. Okay. Okay, so I think that's all. Thank you very much. So if you want